Hi, hi everybody. Hi. Well, thank you very much for being here, for being part of this talk. Thank you very much, DevOps Summit Canada 2022, for the invitation. It's such an honor to be here, to be part of this community and share with you and learn from you. So thank you very much for the chance to be here, sharing with you. So my name is Jorge Castro. I'm going to introduce myself in a little bit, but first I would like to share you my talk. The name of my talk is Tech and Agile Communities. Tech and Agile Communities of Practices Dynamics. Right, building practices at large enterprises. We are better together. So the main idea of this talk is that I'm going to share with you my experiences working with different kind of community of practices, Tech and Agile community of practices, but at the enterprise level, because you can design a community, maybe in a kind of operational level, but when you need to escalate the practice to the entire enterprise, you need to also escalate your communities. So I'm going to share with you some cases about it, some of the real experience about it. So I hope you can enjoy the conversation, enjoy the talk. Basically, if you have the challenge to deal with the maturity or the lack of skills or some specific skills in your company, like agility skills, agile skills, or technical skills like testing or DevOps or cloud or microservices or something, I think that you can get very interesting information here about how you can create a community of practices about that practice to help the maturity and the evolution of that practice in your company, at team level, and also as part of your enterprise strategy to mature the practice along the time. So that's the idea of this workshop. Of this talk. We are better together. I strongly believe on that. I think that the best outcome that we can deliver to our customers, and also the best teams that we can make in our companies, is a team effort, right? It's a team effort, a team play effort. So that is why we are better together. So now I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Jorge Castro. I work as an agility and DevOps and digital transformation lead coach. Here you can see my contact information. Please add me to your LinkedIn accounts. That would be awesome to keep in touch and share ideas and share experiences after this conversation. Also, if you see a topic that you like in this talk, please feel free to reach me out after this talk. So I will be very happy to share with you and exchange experiences and learning from each other. So thank you very much for that in advance. Okay, well, basically that is what I told you, right? Any kind of new ways of working, adoption, Agile, DevOps, and so forth, and business digital transformation demands to be supported by the enterprise capabilities, and I think the main problem is when we want to be Agile, when we want to be DevOps and transform our business with data transformation, cloud transformation, agile transformation, and so forth. One of the main problems is when we, as an enterprise, we don't have those skills, right? And we need to work on them. So community of practices are key enablers to develop and mature them, the practices, through the enterprise, creating safe spaces to experiment and collaborate about the practice between people, right? Between the team members. So my paper is about experiences and lessons learned while designing, gamifying, and launching communities of practices, testing, Scrum, Agile, architecture, DevOps at large enterprises. So what I'm going to share with you are real experiences about this topic. If you have the challenge about tech or non-tech practice that you need to develop in your enterprises, you can use these experiences because, as I mentioned here, I apply this approach for agile stuff, agile practices, and also for tech practices, which is basically the same idea, right? So you are going to see that in some minutes. So I hope you can enjoy the conversation on the talk. Okay, let's start with the real with the real story. Real life in IT business, in enterprise IT business. So once upon a time, and basically this is part of my experience. So I think most of the companies nowadays we want to develop or we want to build new ways of working for our digital transformation, right? So as I said, to work on that in this data transformation, we need to develop enterprise capabilities to support transformation. So there are several, as several enterprise capabilities. We have continuous delivery, we have value-oriented and customer-centered business models, agile architectures. But in this scenario, in this example, we are going to focus on agility, right? Agility as an enterprise capability, which is basically, in my idea, at least, this is my thought, is that agility to me is enterprise agility plus technical agility, right? It's a combination of both, right? So yeah, so that is the focus of this story, of this sharing. So so about the problem, right? If we want to reach the data transformation, we need to work in our enterprise capabilities, in our agility enterprise capabilities. So our first thoughts about it was, okay, we need to build ways of working, basic practices. We need to foster experimentation. We need to make collaboration part of our DNA. So basically, if we want to transform our enterprise, we need to collaborate with different levels, in operational level and also in strategic levels and so forth. So we need to collaborate. Also, we need to build an outcome-centered planning, which is quite important, right? As you know, in any enterprise, the resources are limited, by different aspects, people, budgets, and so forth. So we need to be very smart in terms of how we use those resources, right? And also how we work with our people on those projects, on those initiatives or programs. So yeah, so we need to focus on outcomes, right? That is a main approach of that. So that was a challenge, right? That was our first thoughts about it. So something that it's quite important when we work in this approach, again, right, with communities, is that we are going to deal with people, right? We are going to talk with people, we are going to lead people, we are going to mentoring people, and so forth. So that is real life, right? When you want to mature a practice in your enterprise, when you want to develop a practice in your enterprise, depending of the practice, you can have a cross impact in your enterprise. So you don't need to deal with agilist people, with DevOps people, architects, testers, developers, and mainframe developers, and so forth. They are part of your community, right? At the end, an enterprise is a big community, right? So each person in this image, they represent a group of knowledge, a group of practice, right? Development, agile practices, architecture, testing, and so forth. This is real life. This is what happened in a company. And if you want to move to data transformation, most probably you need to impact all these practices and people with your approach, with community of practices, for example, right? Which is the main idea of this sharing. Yeah, so that is after this scenario, right? After we get that scenario with the problem, with the first thoughts about it, with the level of complexity about dealing with the practices and the different people and roles at the enterprise level. So we decide to design and implement community of practices, right, as part of our approach. So some quotes about it that I like to share. This is from Etienne Wenger Trainer and Beverly Wenger Trainer. They are very well-known people about, they are very well-known writers about community of practices in the market. So they say groups of people who share, what is a community, right? Basically, they answer the question, what is a community? They say groups of people who share a concern or a passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly, right? That's the idea, right? So a community is a group of people who needs to improve a practice, and they work together with different people that share the same problem, or they want to collaborate each other to develop the practicing, So that's the idea, right? That was our goal. That is what we are looking for. And also another quote is from Nancy Hart is change is hard, not change is worse, right? Yeah. So if you like this idea and you say, hey, that's interesting, I want to develop a community of practice in my company, remember something, right? Make people collaborate each other and make people do experiments, make people do fail fast and learn from each other. And it's most probably in some scenarios is new stuff, right? It's change. We need to change different ways of working with our team members, right? So it's a challenge, but I recommend you to do it because it's very beneficial for the enterprise as well, and also for you people, right? We are going to create some shared knowledge and develop people, so which is something great, you know? Okay, one of our approaches to design our communities was this, failing by design. Well, actually, before, that was the idea, right? We needed to design our community of practices and run it, you know, in our enterprise. But of course, at the beginning, we failed with their approach, to be totally honest with you, because we have previous attempts to make community of practices that they didn't get success, right? And also, they didn't get lost, you know, in the time, right? Yeah, so we had at the beginning we had some problems with our first approaches because of lack of practical or hands-on shares. Basically, we created our communities, but the on code or the on hand activities in the communities, most of our trainings and workshops and dojos and so forth were focused on no on hands activities, right? So that was a problem. That is something that we learned, you know, about this. Lack of motivation to be part of the community, you know, yeah. For us, our first idea was, okay, let's create a community and involve people to be part of the community so they can share knowledge. That was the intention, but unfortunately, due to some responsibilities in the team members, projects, and so forth, we had the problem. We had that problem at the beginning, right? Lack of motivation to be part of the community. At the end, also lack of ownership. When you have a lot of people working in a community, you need some kind of ownership, right? You need some kind of ownership, some kind of government, so you can be sure that you're going to run your community. You have the topic, you have the facilitation session, you have the speakers or the facilitators and so forth. I think all those aspects need some kind of governance in your community, right? And missing value, right? The most important part of the community is to get impact in your business in terms of the practice, you know, mature the practice and so forth. So the practice can impact your customers and impact your products and also impact your people, right? Make their work easy and make their collaboration easy as well. So that's the idea. So at the beginning, we learned about it and all these lesson learned was very useful for us because we, for the next iteration, when we run again our community of practices, we learn from these first real life experiences, you know. So how we can make it different this time, right? That was our first approach. And then we need to make it different. So, okay, so I'm going to share with you these new approaches that we implement and worked for us in terms of dealing with those problems that I shared with you and do it better this time, right? First approach is community of practices aligned to business strategy, right? I think that is quite important. Most in your companies, right? You have your strategic level where, you know, you define your goals for the year, right? Your economics goals for the year. It can be improve the budget, improve the market share, improve the customer experience, and so forth, right? You have that stuff in your companies. So the idea with this approach is you need to be sure that your community of practices goals, right, needs to be aligned to those goals, right? So for example, if one of your strategic goal is to improve the time to market in some number of days or in some number of hours or something like that, you need to be sure that your community of practices, for example, right, if you develop a Agile community of practices or a DevOps community of practices, you need to be sure that your goals for your community impacts that goal, right, in some way. It can be directly, or it can be, with meet objective in the path, but you need to be sure that you impact that goal in some way, right, with enablers, with better practices, with some framework and so forth. That is the idea. And of course, for that approach, you need to use experimentation, collaboration, and also game dynamics. I recommend you to use gamification and game design to apply to your community of practices design. I'm going to share with you some ideas about it in some minutes, some examples, about it in some minutes. Okay. Yeah. So basically, I'm going to share with you step by step, or maybe, I'm going to share with you the main ideas that we used with our clients, with our teams, to design those community of practices to be success, dealing with that problem that we faced at the beginning, right? And also with the final goal, right? Which is develop enterprise capabilities to support the business transformation. So again, it can be non-tech, tech, or a combination of both, Agile, testing, DevOps, microservices, and so forth. But the idea is the same, right? The idea is the same. Okay. First approach is the design, basically, of the community. I strongly believe to make it simple. So in our case, you can see the basic, the minimum community, the minimum valuable community, the viable community design. So you can see here I'm going to use you can see here the community practices here, but there are people inside that, here in this team, you have the core or organizing team, which is basically, what I said, right? That this governance team, which is a team in the beginning, but after some community iterations, you need to change the people, right? That's the idea. But at the beginning, you need to identify this core or organizing team that they are going to be in charge, maybe from 1 iteration, 2 iteration, 3 iteration from the community, and then they need to work with a different team inside the community so they can take the ownership to be the core or the organizing team. That's the idea, right? This team needs to be rotate, time to time. And as part of the governance as well, I recommend you to have this community of practice lead, which is basically the person that is going to be in charge to make this happen, right? At least for a couple of iterations. This is quite important. In our previous experiences, we didn't have that. We try to be very, we try to use flow, right? We design the community and wait for the people to take the ownership, but unfortunately it didn't work as we expected. So that is why we recommend you to have this core team at the beginning with a community practice lead, and then after 3 iterations, rotate this person, so each time more people can have the chance to be the leader or be the core team about the community, that is our recommendation. So at the end, this is a team, right? At the end, a community of practices is a big team, with a lot of people sharing knowledge and so forth. So they also have the backlog. They also have a backlog, a prioritized backlog, basically they all play as a product owner. They decide what is the backlog. They decide what are the main topics to work, depending of the business priority and so forth. So they are the owners of the backlog. And also they need to share you need to have OKRs or objective, right? That is quite important because remember that one lesson that we want to share with you today is that you need to create the OKRs or the objectives of your community of practices, and you need to be sure that those goals are aligned to your strategic goals, right? I think that is quite important, especially for sponsorship from upper managers, from managers or from different stakeholders in your enterprise. Okay. Okay. Experience number 2 is the escalation, right? So in our case, we design different community of practices. We define the testing community of practices, the DevOps community of practices, Scrum Master community of practices, software architects community of practices, and so forth. We design and run those communities in different companies. Not all of them in the same company, but basically depending on the business priority and depending on the strategy, we design the communities depending on that. So basically in this approach, you can see here that you can have your community of practices in your tactical operational level with impact, of course, at the enterprise level, but as part of your enterprise agility strategy, where you impact the processes, people, and products, you need to be sure that these communities are here, right? Because remember, regarding my experience, when you deal with the enterprise agility strategy to impact the different value streams in your company, you need to impact the processes, people, and products. So community of practices can help you with that, right? To impact the processes, the people, and the products. So in this part, in this intersection, it's quite important this, right? You need to work in your IT enablers and also in your enterprise capabilities. And as I said at the beginning, COP are quite important for that and at the strategy level. So that's the idea. And of course, as part of that, in your transformation, you have your backlog of transformation, and also you have your OKR of transformation. So that is the idea, right? All these backlogs, all these OKRs need to be in sync, need to be aligned to this strategic backlog and OKRs of your transformation at enterprise level. That's the approach, right? That we want to share with you. Okay, number 3, experience number 3, learn from the past, especially from the failures. Yes, as I said, right? We ran this first approach at the beginning in one iteration, and we failed. We learned a lot of stuff, and that is what we are sharing today with you, the practices that worked for us. Okay, so that is the recommendation. Be sure that as part of your strategy that you experiment, that is great, but more important than that is that you measure the results and you do your list of improvements for your next iteration, right? That is quite important. So yeah, so introduce retrospective or Kaizen or other techniques about continuous improvement in your communities as well, right? You need to be sure that that is happening in your communities, in your core team, and of course, this is something quite important. Okay, practice number 4, we recommend to design your minimal viable community of practices, which is this canvas, which is quite useful, right? Our recommendation is use this canvas. It's quite useful and also it's powerful to create collaboration between the members of the community to, you know, to provoke new ideas, to share ideas, to discuss ideas about what is the community, what is the value that we want to get, what is the community agreements, our period of time that we are going to share our events, and so forth. So this canvas is quite useful. You can find here the purpose of the community, the audience, the goals, the values, the experiences, basically how you can make your community awesome for your members. This is a quite important question, right? So you can find here roles in the community, which is part of the government, rules, which is also part of the government, governance itself, right? What is the governance design? as I said, in our case, basically we create this core team with the leader, and this team is going to be rotate each 3 iterations of the community. And this team is going to be in charge to design the differentiation using the backlog, and also be sure that with the session, we can get impact in the OKRs of the community. So that's the idea, right? I recommend you to use this canvas for your community. Okay, experience number 5, experience, right? Because at the end, any transformation is about experience, right? When we talk about develop enterprise capabilities, agile capabilities, DevOps capabilities, cloud capabilities, and so forth, test capabilities, when we talk about that, is experience, right? We need to practice that, right? We need to experiment, practice, learn, and improve. And we need to do this in an iteration, right? We need to do it continuously, along the time. That's the idea. So this is our experience number 5. The experience is a function of reality and expectation. So be sure about it, right? You can design this, but if you don't design a way that the team can experiment this, it's going to be difficult, right? Because you need to promote experimentation and collaboration. So one approach here is that you can design your OKRs for your community, and you can, for example, use those OKRs metrics like number of key results, like number of experiments, number of shares, between teams, how we can remove waste from a specific practice, and so forth. That's the idea, right? That we can have numbers, so we can work with those numbers to create real practice. So that is quite important to use this idea. This was part of our canvas. Values in our community, what I recommend you is values like sharing knowledge, experimentation, collaboration are key values for your community. And the goal is aligned to transformation goals. Remember that, right? No matter what are your goals in the community, at the end, it's about, it's about improving a practice, mature a practice, and share knowledge to escalate to the enterprise level and improve the business and improve the teams. I think that is the main goal of any community. Remember to align those goals, those OKR, to your transformation goals, or to your strategic goals, depending on your scenario, right? Depending on your case. So that's the idea. Experience number 5. Living instead backlog. That is quite important, right? Remember that each community has a backlog, so you need to have a backlog and prioritize the backlog with your team. You need to share this backlog with entire team members, and you need to work with this backlog in each iteration, right? You need to refine your backlog time to time. That's the idea, right? Have a backlog. Okay, metrics, right? As I said, we recommend you to have OKRs, or objective and key results, for your communities. There are some examples: number of shares and collaborations, number of experiments, Kaizen, for example, and outcomes, right, as well. We want to improve the quality with the community, for example, with testing community practices, improve the speed, improve the savings, remove the waste, and so forth. That is quite important. And also, again, you need to align those OKRs to your strategic OKR or to your transformation OKR. That is quite important. And that is what we learned from our first failed experience. How do we make COP last longer and more engaged? I think that is a good question. Gamification. We recommend you to use gamification. This is a framework that is a well-known framework about gamification. And this is a framework that I really like to use, Octalysis from UK Cho, because it combines game design but human design. So you can learn about this framework of gamification, Octalysis. And those are some examples, right? We use gamification for Scrum Master community of practices. Basically, we create a game where the Scrum Masters work together. They get some points depending on the number of shares that they present in the community, depending on the impact that they have in the teams, and also in the outcomes of the enterprise. So they can get some points, some recognition from the leaders, and so forth, right? At team member level, and also at team level. So yeah, so we create some gamification about it to have fun with the team of Scrum Master at that time. Yeah, some points, right? As I said, some points. Sorry, some points, right? You can get some point depending of how you can collaborate with different teams, how you can share knowledge and so forth. So yeah, so we have a kind of ranking game boards where we have the position of the Scrum Masters in terms of the how great you are playing, how you are sharing and so forth. You can get that information. Yeah. So the idea at the end, to sum up, community of practices working together. Remember that you can have the COP of testing, the COP of Agile, the COP of DevOps. The idea is at the end, they can work together in the same ecosystem, right? Because we are working at the enterprise level. So to look for that collaboration between COPs, you can create, for example, Innovation Day. An Innovation Day is a kind of enterprise level where you basically work with a business problem, and all the team members who are part of different creative practices work together to work in that problem, right? So you can have a team working in some specific business goal, and in that team you can have people from the testing community practices, from the development community practices, from the Agile community practices working together to reach to face the problem, right? So that is Innovation Day. It's a kind of enterprise level where you can combine all the skills that you are working with your communities at the enterprise level for a cross enterprise business problem, for example. Right? So yeah, so in this case, again, right, as I said, I use gamification. So I think I like this idea, the minimum enjoyable game. So please remember that you can use gamification in your approaches, but remember that you need to prepare this minimum enjoyable game. Not too much information, not too much design. Basically, do the minimum design so you can make this approach enjoyable for your people. So that is what I recommend you. And remember that after the iterations, you can improve the game, right? So be sure that you make it simple at the beginning with your game, put it in production and get feedback from your players with your community, and then you can improve that, right? That's the idea. Those are the steps, right? The steps that we have in the community. I think that we need to access to different specific roles, and anyone we need to contribute with the community practices. We need to self-respect, share dignity, and impact also through our OKRs and the business, and be sure that our team belongs to our community, right? They feel that they are part of something of the community and they are getting input or getting impact to the business, right? And you can get that through gamification. So I recommend you these human design patterns. So if you want to use gamification for your community practices. Finally, some lessons. Rotate the COP organizing team. That is what I recommend you. You are what you game. If your game is about collaboration, about have fun, your people is going to be the same. So be sure about it. Your business grows as your community and people grow. That is quite important. Remember that your communities are going to support the work in the enterprise capabilities, and in your strategy, your agile enterprise transformation or your business transformation, you need that to support all the transformation. So that is quite important. So the last learning lesson is that whatever you're going to do in your community, be sure that it's PPT-less. So try to be sure to share real experiences with real approaches. So that's the idea. I hope that you can notice that what we share in this session is basically the real stuff that we work with our teams that we expect that can help you, right, in your implementations. So yeah, we recommend if you want to transform ways of working, dojos, katas, and mob programming is a good approach. So we recommend those practices if you want to change ways of working. They are quite useful for tech and not tech approaches or practices. To sum up, COPs can help you to enable and develop different enterprise capabilities as part of your business goals, while building social learning spaces where people is benefit and have fun also. You know, that is the main idea in this talk. So remember that community supports culture, support the outcomes, social learning spaces at the enterprise and beyond. So I think in my experience, working with COP is a good approach to develop enterprise capability, to have fun with your team, and to create a sharing knowledge mindset in your company. So some books that I recommend you that you can check, please. Those books are quite awesome. Some references about it. Please remember that. Don't forget that we all have dreams. So help and share more. Sharing is caring. Remember that. And thank you very much for your time. I hope that you can enjoy this experience. Please be sure to add me to your LinkedIn accounts and keep in touch. Thank you very much. Take care.